Okay, so today we are going to discuss some important concepts and some advanced concepts rather of using for loop. Okay, so I will just create a file over here which is, let's say, experiment dot java, right? So, and I will declare a class over here, public class experiment. The name of the class should be same as the file name. Okay, and I will create a main function over here. That's it. Okay, so some advanced concepts about for loop. So let's start with the first example. Let's say I'm taking a for loop. This is a typical for loop. Now we have to write some statements inside this for loop. Now always remember there can be at most 2 semicolons for a for loop. Okay, so there can be a maximum of 2 semicolons for a for loop. Okay, so next thing is, if you want you can provide statements. Okay, so int I equals to 0, and let's say I less than equals to 5, and let's say I plus plus. Okay, so this is a typical for loop. Let's say I want to print out the value of I. Okay, so if I run this program, let's say what I will do is I will go to this particular folder and I will open a terminal over here. I will write java c experiment dot java to compile the code, and once compiled the bytecode is generated. Now I will just run this program, java experiment. So I can see this is the output 0 1 2 3 4 5. My code is something like this, and my output is 0 1 2 3 4 5. So this is a typical for loop, right? This is a typical for loop. Now what do I mean by 3 statements? As you can see, before the first semicolon we have a statement which is the initialization, which performs the initialization of a for loop. Next we have the condition checking, or the expression which evaluates to either true or false. We call it the loop condition. The third one is the counter updation, statement. Okay, it can be, you can update the counter in any way you like. I have used, for example, I plus plus. Okay, so if you want, you can just write, like I equals to I plus 2, perfectly fine. Okay, even if you want to use a shorthand operator, plus equals to 2, still the same thing. So I plus equals to 2, that means I equal to I plus 2. So I will just go with the shorthand operator, I plus equals to 2. As I said, I plus equals to 2, that means I equal to I plus 2. And if I run this program, I have made these changes. So what I will do is I will again run java c. This will give the bytecode for me, which is experiment.class. This is the bytecode, and then I will write java experiment, and this is output 0 to 4. Okay, great. This one is a typical for loop. Now what if you want to use the increment factor a bit differently? Okay, so let's say we have I asterisk equals to 2, which means I equals to I multiplied by 2. How about this one? Will this for loop run? Yes, absolutely, it should run. So let's check. We will again compile the program, and then we will again run the program, and you can see it's always coming 0 0 0 0, and in fact it has turned into an infinite loop. Can you tell me the reason? So let me just stop this loop once. Okay, So what is the reason behind this infinite loop? Because we are doing I equals to I multiplied by 2 and the starting value is 0. So 0 multiplied by anything will always be 0, right? So this condition I less than equal to 5 will always be true, it will never be false. So that is the reason the loop will run infinitely. Okay, so let's make some changes. Let's make it I equals to 1. This time we won't make the same mistake. So I equals to 1, I will just put some gaps. Okay, and now we will again run this code, and here is the output 124. 124 is the output, which means the value of I is multiplied by 2. So the first value is 1, it will print out 1, right? So the next value will be I equals to I multiplied by 2, which is 1 into 2 is 2. So the second value will be 2, and the third value will be I equals to I multiplied by 2, which is 4. So 4 is less than equal to 5, right? So it will print 5. Clear? Okay, so let's take another example. Let's say I will comment this out and I will introduce another example. This time what we will do is we will do the initialization outside the for loop. Let's say int I equals to 1, and we will delete this initialization statement at the beginning. So essentially you can see this is a blank statement, nothing is there, and then we have the loop condition, and then we have the loop updation, the loop counter updation. Okay, so will this code run? Yes, this is also possible. So if I do a Java compile and if I do a run, so I get the output 124. Okay, so it is possible to provide blank statements inside a for loop, but 2 semicolons are mandatory. Okay, this is one. So how about the taking out this loop increment counter updation, and let us paste it over here. Now the loop has 2 blank statements, just the condition itself. Now will this loop run? Yes, it will still run. Let's check Java C and then Java, and this is the output 124. Clear? So 2 blank statements are also possible, as well as 3 blank statements are also possible. But keep this in mind, if you provide 3 blank statements, then your loop will turn into an infinite loop. It will keep on running because there is no condition based on which the loop will evaluate whether I have to keep on continuing this iteration or I have to get out of this iteration. Okay, but since there is no condition, it will be an infinite loop. So condition is mandatory. Okay, now another example that I would like to show is, so let's say I will just comment out this piece of the code. Let's take another example. I will just uncomment out the code. Okay, now what we will do is, instead of writing I asterisk equals to 2, I will just write I plus plus. This is a sample typical for loop that you see. Now a lot of people think that okay, I plus plus means post increment operator. What about pre increment operator? Can I use it? Like, can I use plus plus I? Will this make any difference? No, it does not make any difference. Okay, the output will still be the same. For example, if I run this particular piece of code and this one 1 2 3 4 5, the same output that I got when I was running it previously from 1 to 5. So pre-increment or post-increment, pre-decrement or post-decrement factor operators do not matter during the execution of a for loop. It's simple because first when the loop starts, the initialization statement is executed, then the condition is checked, okay, and then it goes inside the loop body and it executes the loop body. Once it executes the loop body, it comes back to this one, which is the counter updation statement. It executes this statement, then again goes for checking the condition, and if the condition still is true, then again it comes inside the loop body and it executes the loop body. So this cycle goes on and on. So you can see this plus plus I or I plus plus does not matter when you are using a for loop, okay. However, it will matter if, let's say, I take another example. I will just comment out this one, okay. This will matter if it is something like this. Let's say I have taken the counter updation statement and I have put it inside the loop body. We can do this, right? It is allowed, but in this case you can see the initialization will be I equals to 1. 1 is less than or equal to 5, which is true. It comes inside the loop body, but then it executes this statement, which is a pre-increment, and the value of 1 gets updated to 2, okay, and then this statement, print statement, is executed, okay. So if I run this example, let's take Java C and then Java C 2 3 4 5 6. Previously the output was 1 2 3 4 5. Now we are getting 2 3 4 5 6. It has made a difference, okay. So keep this in mind. Wherever this loop counter statement, loop counter updation statement, wherever you are putting, you have to be very careful. How about if I want to put I plus plus? What about this one? Will the output be same? Yes, it's the same thing, 2 3 4 5 6. But if you take this statement and you put it after the print statement, I plus plus or plus plus I, doesn't matter, okay, in this case your output will be the initial one, which is 1 2 3 4 5. So if I do a Java C and if I do a Java, this one 1 2 3 4 5. Clear? So these are some examples that I wanted to show, that you know, these are part of advanced constructs for a for loop, okay. Let's take another example. This one will be a little different, okay. So let's take another example. I will take this one. What I will do is I will make int I equals to 1 comma j equals to 1, okay, and over here I perform I plus plus comma j plus plus. I will just delete this one, it's not used. So what I will do is I will print the value of j as well. So let's do one thing. I will print like this, I equals to, and then I will print the value of I, and j equals to, and then I will print out the value of j, okay. So j also, I starts from 1. Let's make j let's make it from 0, okay. Let's start it from 0. So very important, and very important to understand is that you can provide more than one initialization statements inside a for loop. You can provide more than one initialization statements inside a for loop. Here I have provided 2 statements. Also in the loop updation loop counter updation place, you can provide more than one statement. However, two semicolons are mandatory. So you can see I have used a comma to separate out more than one initialization, and here also a comma to separate out more than one counter updation factors. Okay, so is this possible? Will this run? Yes, it should run. So let's say I will do this Java C, and then I will do Java experiment, and you can see the value of I is 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4, and then 5. Okay, the value of j is 0, and then 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4. Why is j from 0 to 4? Because j starts from 0. And since the end, now the question, that's a very important question. So how many times will this loop run? This loop runs based on the value of I, because the condition is based on the value of I. It is not based on the value of j. So j is just a spectator. The main variable is I, because the loop depends on the value of I. Okay, it depends on the value of I. So let's say, for example, I equals to 1. Every time the value of I is updated, it will go on, it will check I less than equals to 5. So as you can see, value starts from 1. I less than equal to 5 means I can travel to a maximum value of 5. So from 1 to 5, and I am incrementing it with plus 1. So it will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are the values that I can get, possible values that I can get from this for loop. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 means 5 times. So this loop will execute 5 times. And based on that, the value of j starts from 0, and it just keeps on, incrementing. So this is also possible in a for loop. You might say that, okay, so the next question might be, how about if I want to put, let's say, z equals to 1, is it possible? Yes, it's possible. So let's say you want to print out the value of z. So z equals to z. Okay, but keep this in mind, we are just putting the initial value of z equals to 1, and we are not using any counter updation statement. If you want, you can use it, not a problem, but I don't want to use it. So the value of z will always be 1 throughout this iteration. Okay, so let's test it. Java C, and then Java. So see, z is always 1, z equals to 1, z equals to 1, and z equals to 1. But the remaining variables, which is I and j, their values keep on changing, right? So these are some advanced constructs of a for loop. Okay, I will show you another example, which is a very cool one, cool example, which is, let's say I have a for loop, and I write something like this: int I equals 0, I less than 5, I plus plus, right? And let's say I print out the value of I. Okay, and I will put a semicolon over here. Okay, and let's say I declare int okay, let me do one thing. Int I will declare it outside, and I will keep the initialization over here. Okay, so this is a classic example which comes in exams also. Okay, so what will be the output? Its output will be 5, just 5. So let us run this portion of the code, and we will see Java C, and then we will run Java. So the output is only 5. Why did it happen? Because this is a special one. Normally we use a curly brace for denoting a block of code, right? We use a curly brace open and curly brace closed for denoting a block of code. But as you can see over here, I have not used any curly brace. I have just used a semicolon. So if you are using a semicolon at the end of a for loop, very important, if you are using a semicolon at the end of a for loop, then the loop will execute properly, not a problem, but the loop body is confined to this statement only. Okay, rather the loop does not have any body. The loop does not have any body because I haven't put any statements over here after the end of the first bracket, the closing first bracket or the closing parenthesis. I have not put any statement over here. This is basically a blank. Okay, so the loop will perfectly execute, but since there is no loop body, nothing will happen. And after this loop completes, the value of I will be 5. So after this loop completes, it will come to this statement, and the last value of I from this loop is 5. So this statement will be printed 5. So this statement will print the value 5. So basically the loop executes properly, not a problem, but there is no loop body, so nothing happens as such. Just the loop executes and keeps on updating the value of I. At the end of the execution of this loop, the value of I remains 5. So it comes out of this loop, it goes and executes this statement, and the value is printed as 5. Okay, it's pretty simple, right? For example, it starts with I equal to 0, 0 is less than 5, true. It does it goes, since there is no loop body, it comes back to I plus plus. The value of I is incremented by 1, 1 less than 5, true. It goes inside the loop body, no loop body, it comes and increments the value of I becomes 3, and so on. So I know the value of I will become 4. Okay, before the second last iteration, what will happen? The value of I is 4, it comes inside the loop body, no loop body to execute, it again goes to the counter updation, it performs a +1, so 4 plus 1 becomes 5. Now is 5 less than 5? It's false. This loop ends, but the value of I remains 5. So when it executes this statement, it gets the value of I as 5. Another thing to note is I have declared I outside the for loop, hence its scope, the scope of I is visible for this print statement. Normally when we use variables, we declare int inside the for loop, which means the scope of I is limited to the body of the for loop. But in this case, I haven't declared over here, I have declared the variable over here, and I have initialized inside the for loop, which means this scope of I is visible inside the for loop as well as outside the for loop, right? Okay, let's take the last example. I will just copy this portion of the code and I will just create a last example. How about I want to execute just a single statement. I just want to execute a single statement. So how about this one? I just remove the semicolon over here, but I will not put any curly brace, and I will do is sys out loop. Now can you tell me the output of this code? Okay, so let's now try to run this program and see what is the output. Okay, so did you guess the output? Let's see what is the output. Let's first compile it and then run it. So it comes 0 1 2 3 4 and then loop. Why did this happen? Because we might have thought, okay, so these two statements are the loop body. No, by default, if you do not provide a curly brace, let's see, if you do not provide a curly brace over here, okay, if you do not provide that, then the immediate next statement after the for loop is considered the body. Keep this in mind, the immediate next statement after the for loop is considered the body of the for loop. Okay, not the one after it. No, only the statement which comes just after the for loop is considered the body of the for loop. Hence, when the for loop runs, it will consider this statement as the body and so I get the output 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, perfectly fine. Now when the loop exits, the control of the program will come over to this line, and then this line will be executed and we will get a print statement which is loop.